There are moments in life when a single word, a single truth, can shift everything. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. And this moment you've stepped into is not an accident. You're not here by coincidence. You're here because something inside of you has been restless, waiting, sensing that change is near. You've felt it, haven't you? That tug in your spirit, that whisper in your soul that says, there has to be more than this. And the truth is, there is. You've been prepared for a season you couldn't see coming. Every battle, every disappointment, every closed door has been leading you to this very point. This isn't just about inspiration. It's not about another motivational message you'll forget tomorrow. What you're about to hear is a call to remember who you are, why you're here, and what has been planted inside of you from the beginning. Because destiny doesn't wait forever. Opportunities don't linger at the door indefinitely. And if you miss the timing of heaven, regret will whisper louder than any enemy you've ever faced. That's why this moment matters. That's why this word is for you. You see, the chosen are rarely the ones the world expects. They're not always the strongest, the loudest, or the most qualified. Often, they're the overlooked, the underestimated, the ones who battled silently while no one else was watching. And yet, those are the very people God raises up to shift generations. So let this be the confirmation you've been waiting for. Let this be the sign that you are not forgotten, not abandoned, not lost in the shuffle. You are marked, you are chosen, and the time for hesitation has passed. In the next moments, we're going to step through truths that will challenge you, awaken you, and remind you of who you really are. This is not entertainment. This is alignment. Alignment with heaven's timing, heaven's calling, and heaven's promise for your life. Stay with me. Lean in. Because once you grasp what's being spoken over you, you'll never look at your journey the same way again. And more than that, you'll never look at yourself the same way again. 1. Divine timing. There are moments in life that feel ordinary on the surface, but in heaven's timeline, they are extraordinary. Right now, you are standing in one of those moments. Think about it. Every closed door, every delay, every prayer that seemed unanswered was not wasted. They were threads being woven together, preparing you for this exact season. God's timing doesn't operate like a clock on the wall. It doesn't bend to our schedules, our frustrations, or our deadlines. It moves according to His purpose. That's why sometimes it feels like nothing is happening when, in reality, everything is happening. Behind the scenes, alignments are taking place. Relationships are being positioned. Opportunities are forming. Resources are moving into place. Consider the story of Joseph. Sold into slavery by his brothers, forgotten in a prison cell, it looked like years of wasted time. But when God's timing arrived, in a single day, Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister. That is the power of divine timing. It does not need permission from circumstance. It only needs a word from God. And here's the truth. You have not been delayed. You have been developed. The waiting you've endured was never punishment. It was preparation. You are being shaped, refined, stretched, and strengthened for what is unfolding right now. If it had come earlier, you would not have been ready. If it had come later, the opportunity would have passed. But now it is here. Divine timing often disguises itself as inconvenience. Think of Moses at the burning bush. He wasn't planning a life-changing encounter that day. He was simply tending sheep in the wilderness. Yet, that was the exact moment God chose to interrupt his ordinary routine with an extraordinary call. The same is true for you. What feels like a normal day may actually be the day heaven has marked as the turning point of your destiny. But divine timing is not passive. It requires recognition. It requires you to open your eyes and realize that this is not just another season. It is a set time, an appointed time. Scripture says in Ecclesiastes, "To everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose under heaven." That means your struggles had a time. Your waiting had a time. But now, your breakthrough has a time too. Imagine a seed buried in the soil. For weeks, nothing seems to happen. You water it, you wait, and you wonder if anything is even alive beneath the surface. But underground, roots are spreading, life is forming. Then, at the appointed time, the soil breaks open, and what was hidden becomes visible. That's where you are right now. What you thought was buried is about to break through. The question is, will you recognize it? Will you embrace it? Divine timing is powerful, but it requires a response. The door can swing wide open, but you must have the courage to step through it. The opportunity can present itself, but you must be willing to say yes. This is not about striving. It's not about forcing things to happen. It's about alignment. When heaven moves, your role is to move with it. When God says it's time, your role is to trust Him enough to step forward, even if everything around you says you're not ready. And maybe that's the very point. Divine timing often feels like it comes too soon, but that's because God doesn't wait for you to feel qualified. He moves when He knows you are prepared. That is why this moment is holy. It is not just another day. It is the day God has chosen to mark your life with change. 2. Identity of the chosen. Think about the people God has called throughout history. Rarely were they the ones others would have picked. David was just a shepherd boy, overlooked even by his own family when Samuel came searching for Israel's next king. Esther was an orphan in a foreign land, without position or influence, yet she was chosen to be queen and to stand in the gap for her people. Gideon saw himself as the weakest in his family, hiding in fear, yet God called him a mighty warrior. These stories remind us of a truth that often feels too bold to believe. Being chosen is not about being the strongest, the most qualified, or the most visible. Being chosen is about being willing to listen, willing to move, willing to trust. Deep inside you, there's been a tug, a quiet voice that whispers, there is more for your life. You've felt it when opportunities passed you by, when ordinary routines felt too small for the fire inside you, when the world tried to tell you to settle, but something in you refused. That restlessness is not a flaw. It is evidence. Evidence that you are set apart. Evidence that you were never meant to blend into the background. Evidence that God has written your name into His story. But here's the catch. The identity of the chosen is often misunderstood. The chosen don't always look chosen. They may struggle with doubts, insecurities, even failures. Look at Moses, hesitant to speak, burdened by his past, yet still called to confront Pharaoh and lead a nation out of slavery. If God could use Moses, why not you? The chosen are not picked because they are flawless. They are chosen because, through their weakness, God's strength shines brightest. Your insecurities do not disqualify you. They actually prepare you to rely on something greater than yourself. And when you finally accept that identity, something shifts. Suddenly, the things you once saw as limitations become reminders of God's power. The mistakes of your past no longer define you. They become the backdrop for His redemption. The seasons of waiting stop feeling like punishment and start looking like training. Being chosen means your life carries weight beyond the surface. It means your words carry influence, your actions carry impact, and your presence carries light in places where darkness once ruled. It means you were designed not only to survive, but to shift the atmosphere around you. Imagine walking into a room and not needing to announce yourself, yet people sense something different. That difference is not pride, not arrogance. It's the mark of the chosen. It's the quiet authority that comes from knowing you were placed on earth for a purpose larger than yourself. But here's the challenge. Many people never step into their identity as chosen. They spend their lives trying to fit into molds they were never meant for. They downplay their gifts. They silence their own voices. They trade their calling for comfort because being chosen often feels uncomfortable. That's where you have a decision to make. Will you continue to shrink back, or will you dare to embrace who you really are? You don't have to wait for everyone else to understand. They didn't understand David at first. They didn't understand Joseph in the pit. They didn't understand Jesus when he walked among them. But their misunderstanding did not cancel God's appointment. Your identity as chosen isn't about recognition from people. It's about confirmation from heaven. And heaven has already spoken. You are set apart. 3. Transformation. Through struggle. Struggle is a teacher. Most of us spend our lives trying to avoid it, but the truth is, it shapes us in ways comfort never could. Every battle you've faced, every disappointment, every season of waiting has been molding you into someone stronger than you realize. Think back to your hardest moments. The nights you prayed for answers that never seemed to come. The times when doors kept slamming shut. The seasons where you felt overlooked, forgotten, or abandoned. At the time, it may have felt like punishment, but in reality, it was preparation. God doesn't waste struggle. He uses it as the very ground where transformation takes place. Take David, for example. Before he ever faced Goliath, he spent years protecting sheep from lions and bears. Those hidden battles, the ones nobody saw, built the courage and skill he needed to defeat a giant in public. What looked like meaningless struggle was actually divine training. And isn't that how life works? The challenges we face often don't make sense until later. We can't see how the pieces fit, but when the breakthrough arrives, suddenly we realize every painful step was leading us here. Your struggle has been refining you. Fire purifies gold, and pressure forms diamonds. In the same way, hardship refines character. It burns away fear, pride, and doubt, leaving you with a faith that is unshakable. You are not the same person you were before the storm. You've gained resilience, wisdom, and strength that could never have been learned any other way. Consider Joseph, betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and left to rot in a prison. From the outside, his story looked like tragedy. But each struggle shaped him into the leader who would one day save nations from famine. Without the pit, he would never have seen the palace. Without the prison, he would never have gained the wisdom to lead. The same principle applies to your life. The pain you endured is not wasted. The closed doors, the betrayals, the sleepless nights, they've all been working together to form a version of you that is ready for more. You may not feel ready, but that's the beauty of transformation. It often happens quietly, beneath the surface, until suddenly you step into a moment and realize you are stronger, braver, and more prepared than you ever imagined. Transformation through struggle also strips away illusions. It teaches you who your real friends are. It reveals where your faith truly stands. It exposes weaknesses, but also highlights strengths you didn't know you had. It pulls you closer to God, because when all else fails, you discover that He never does. Look at Peter. Bold one moment, denying Jesus the next. But after his failure, after his struggle, he became the rock on which the church was built. His pain humbled him, his failure shaped him, and his restoration gave him the authority to speak with power. Without his lowest moment, he would never have stood so strong in his calling. Your story is no different. Every scar carries a lesson. Every setback carries a seed of growth. You may not have chosen your struggles, but you can choose what they make of you. So instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" start asking, "What is this shaping in me?" Because once you see your pain as preparation, everything changes. You are not defined by what broke you. You are defined by who you are becoming through it, and the truth is, your struggles are the very proof that you are being transformed for something greater. 4. The call to faith in action. There comes a point where believing isn't enough. Thinking about it, talking about it, even praying about it has to give way to movement. Faith without action is like having a map and never taking a step. It looks nice, but it gets you nowhere. Let's be honest. It's easier to stay in the place of thinking. It feels safer to plan, to imagine, to wait for the perfect moment. But here's the reality. The perfect moment doesn't exist. Waiting for everything to line up before you act is just another form of fear. Faith is never comfortable. It pushes you out of the familiar. Look at Peter. He was safe in the boat, surrounded by other disciples, but when Jesus called him out onto the water, the only way to respond was to step into uncertainty. He didn't know if his feet would sink. He didn't know if the waves would swallow him, but he moved anyway. That's faith in action, and that's the invitation in front of you right now, to move before you feel ready, to step even when fear whispers, "What if you fail?" To trust that God's call is stronger than the storm around you. Think about this. Every breakthrough you've ever wanted is on the other side of a step you haven't taken yet. You want to see change? Then you can't keep doing what you've always done. You want to experience more? Then you have to move beyond what feels safe. Faith is not about having all the answers. It's about trusting the one who does. Abraham left everything he knew without even knowing where he was going. He didn't have GPS. He didn't have guarantees. All he had was a word from God, and that was enough. What's holding you back from your next step? Is it fear of failure? Fear of rejection? Fear of not being enough? Let me remind you, fear is loud, but it's also a liar. Fear will always exaggerate what could go wrong and minimize what could go right. Faith, on the other hand, shifts your focus. Faith doesn't ignore the storm, but it believes the storm isn't the final word. When you take action in faith, something shifts in the atmosphere. Opportunities open that weren't there before. People show up who weren't in the picture before. Doors swing wide that were once locked. Why? Because faith is magnetic. It pulls heaven's resources into alignment with your obedience. But here's what you can't miss. Faith isn't just about big dramatic gestures. Sometimes it's the small, consistent steps that carry the most power. Forgiving when it's easier to stay bitter. Starting the project even when you don't feel prepared. Reaching out when pride says, "Don't bother." Every small act of obedience builds momentum, and momentum matters. Once you start moving, it becomes harder for fear to pin you down. You realize that action itself is an antidote to doubt. The more steps you take, the stronger your faith grows. The stronger your faith grows, the more boldly you act. That's how destinies are fulfilled. Not by waiting for lightning to strike, but by moving step by step, refusing to stay paralyzed. So here's the challenge. Stop waiting. Stop rehearsing the reasons why it won't work. Stop playing it safe. If God is calling you, then the time to act is now. Because faith that stays in your head changes nothing. Faith that moves your feet changes everything. 5. Legacy and generational impact. Picture this. Years from now, your children, your family, maybe even people you'll never meet, are walking in blessings because of a choice you made today. The ripple of your obedience stretches further than your lifetime. It doesn't end with you. It begins with you. That's the weight of legacy. Legacy is more than money, more than achievements, more than a name etched in history. Legacy is about impact. It's about what your faith sets in motion for the ones who come after you. Think about Abraham. When he stepped out in obedience to God's call, it wasn't just about him leaving his homeland. That one act opened the door for entire nations to be blessed. Scripture calls him the father of faith because his yes echoed through generations. His willingness to believe didn't stop with his lifetime. It became the foundation of countless lives that followed. Now think about your own story. Every decision you make carries weight. Choosing to trust God when it's hard. Choosing to walk in purpose when it's uncomfortable. Choosing to persevere when it would be easier to quit. These aren't small acts. They're seeds. And seeds don't just produce for today. They produce harvests that your children and grandchildren will walk into. Maybe you've experienced the opposite too. Maybe you've seen what happens when choices rooted in fear or compromise leave scars that last for years. Families broken by cycles of addiction, poverty, or pain. all because someone along the line surrendered to regret instead of faith. But here's the good news. You have the power to break that cycle. Your obedience can plant a new story. Legacy is not built in one dramatic moment. It's built in the daily decisions to align with what God is doing. The moments when no one is watching. But you choose integrity anyway. The nights you pray when giving up would feel easier. The times you keep walking by faith when it feels like nothing is changing. Those hidden choices are chiseling a future you cannot yet see. Imagine your life as a stone dropped into a still pond. The impact point is small, but the ripples spread wide, touching shores far beyond what you can reach. That's what your faith does. You may never see the full reach of your obedience, but heaven does. God sees how your courage today will spark courage in someone else tomorrow. Look at Esther. She didn't just risk her life for herself. Her bravery saved her entire people. Look at Joseph. His perseverance through betrayal and prison positioned him to preserve not only his family, but entire nations. Their stories prove that legacy is born when ordinary people step into extraordinary obedience. And here's the part that should stir something in you. Someone's breakthrough is tied to your yes. Someone's freedom, someone's hope, someone's healing is connected to the decision you're wrestling with right now. What you do with your moment matters. Legacy is not about being remembered for your name. It's about being remembered for the difference you made. When people speak of you, will they say you played it safe? Or will they say you lived boldly, leaving a trail of faith for others to follow? Generations are waiting on the other side of your obedience. You may not see them yet. You may not know their names, but they will one day thank you for refusing to shrink back, for refusing to give in to fear, for daring to live as one who was chosen. 6. Promise of transformation. Imagine walking into a new season where the weight you carried for years suddenly feels lighter, where the walls that once boxed you in have crumbled and the air around you is filled with possibility. That is what transformation looks like when heaven moves in your life. Transformation is not simply about change. Change can be surface level, temporary, cosmetic. Transformation is deeper. It alters the very core of who you are. It shifts your perspective, your habits, your choices, your future. It's the moment when the person you used to be no longer fits into the life God is calling you to live. Think about a caterpillar, crawling, slow, hidden. Its entire world is limited to branches and leaves. Then comes the cocoon, a dark, confined space. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. But within, everything is being restructured. The old form dissolves so that something new can emerge. And when the time comes, wings break through. What was once earthbound is now able to soar. That is the promise of transformation for you. The cocoon seasons, the struggles, the waiting, the pain, were not wasted. They were the very places where God was reshaping you. And now, like the butterfly, you are stepping into a new dimension of freedom and beauty you couldn't have imagined before. Transformation means that the areas of lack begin to overflow. Where there was fear, courage takes root. Where there was confusion, clarity becomes your compass. Where there was scarcity, provision flows in ways that don't even make sense on paper. This isn't self-improvement, it's divine renewal. Picture a field once barren and dry, the soil cracked, the plants withered. Then the rain comes. Slowly at first, then pouring. The ground drinks it in, and suddenly life returns. Flowers bloom. Trees grow strong, fruit ripens. That is what God's transformation does in a life. It takes what was empty and fills it with abundance. But it's not just about what happens around you. It's about what happens within you. Transformation rewrites the narrative in your mind. The voices that used to tell you you're not enough lose their power. The shame that used to hold you captive no longer chains you. You begin to see yourself the way heaven sees you, chosen, strong, and equipped. Transformation also carries authority. People notice when something has shifted in you. They may not be able to explain it, but they'll sense it in the way you walk, the way you speak, the peace that surrounds you even in the middle of challenges. That's because transformation is not quiet. It radiates, it influences, it impacts. Think of Paul, once a persecutor, feared and hated. Then one encounter changed everything. His name, his mission, his identity, transformed. The same man who once destroyed lives became the one who gave his life to build them. That's the radical promise of transformation. Your past no longer defines your future. And transformation is contagious. When others see what God has done in you, hope ignites in them. Your story becomes the proof that breakthrough is possible. Your journey becomes a living testimony that if God can do it for you, He can do it for them. So imagine again. Imagine your life no longer bound by what was, but lifted by what is becoming. Imagine stepping into rooms you once felt unworthy of, carrying the quiet authority of someone who knows they've been transformed. Imagine walking in abundance, not just for yourself, but to pour into others. That is the promise. Not a small adjustment, not a temporary fix, but a complete renewal. A life reshaped, a destiny unlocked, a future alive with possibility. You've walked through the truths of timing, identity, struggle, faith, legacy, and transformation. Each one has been more than just words. They've been invitations. Invitations to step out of hesitation and into destiny. Invitations to leave behind the weight of regret and embrace the fullness of who you are. But here's the reality. None of it matters if it stays only in your mind. This isn't meant to be another message you hear and then forget. It's meant to be the moment where something shifts in your spirit. The moment you decide that enough is enough. You will no longer shrink back, no longer wait for permission, no longer live as though you are anything less than chosen. Think of where you stand right now. You are at the threshold of everything you've prayed for, hoped for, and even wept for. On one side is the life you've always known, familiar, but limited. On the other side is the life God has been preparing you for all along, bold, abundant, filled with purpose. The choice is yours, and it won't always be easy. Stepping forward never is, but easy was never the goal. Transformation, legacy, destiny, they all require courage. And courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward even while fear whispers in your ear. So here's the question only you can answer. Will you say yes? Will you trust the timing, embrace your identity, honor the lessons of your struggle, and move in faith? Will you choose to live for something bigger than yourself, leaving a legacy that outlasts you? The promise of transformation is not reserved for someone else. It's not for the people who seem more qualified, more confident, more ready. It's for you, right here, right now. Don't let this moment slip by. Don't let hesitation rob you of what heaven is laying before you. You've come too far, endured too much, and been prepared for too long to walk away now. This is your word, your season, your invitation. Step into it and never look back.